Good afternoon, folks. Welcome back to the Food for the Faithful channel with me, Bill Reimer, your reluctant prophet, and here to provide some perspective on how I've come to the conclusions that I've come to regarding this postmodern narrative that has captured virtually every bit of the sanction narrative that comes out of the Fourth Estate and our illiberal authoritarian government. So how have I come to my conclusions? It was while living in Norway that I first learned about the agenda of the radical left. The postmodern left has hidden its soul-crushing agenda behind feel-good virtue signaling. It was then that I first began to understand that we were headed toward the utter collapse of the post-World War II vision for humanity. This vision has failed for the simple reason that it blended neo-Marxism with fascism. Post-war globalism depends on central planning and regulation of the economy, where industry is only permitted to produce what the unelected global order deems to be valuable and sustainable, whatever that means. Because if it wasn't sustainable, it wouldn't even exist. The one thing you need to understand about the postmodern left is their words don't mean what the dictionary meaning of the words mean. They have their own language. So, this despite the complete failure of the green agenda, which they have promoted with religious zeal. We live under government-regulated media since the Fourth Estate has become the propaganda tool of unelected kleptocrats, and it's used to promote their dystopian vision for humanity. Within this post-war global order, we see elements of both fascism and Marxism blended into the bastard child of the two ideologies the West spent much of the 20th century fighting. My very real fear is that we're so far into the complete adoption of these ideas and the resultant failures of mass immigration that we cannot turn the tide. Unvetted immigration has had one primary goal: to kill off, through attrition and age, anyone who remembers what it was like to have even a modicum of individual liberty. Most fundamentally, due to censorship, it has become virtually impossible for the free market of ideas to offer an alternative narrative. The West has become what the Islamists refer to as a woman to be mounted. This is why the left allies itself with radical political Islam, since both are illiberal, authoritarian, and anti-Christian. Both seek to destroy what little remains of the very concept of what it means to be a Christian Westerner. In a very real way, Hitler, Stalin, and Mao won the ideological battle, and as a result, the West has lost much of its freedom. This attack on our foundational values started in our treasonous universities, who have, for decades, taught pure, ideological poison to our kids at the taxpayers' expense. So thank you, Norway, for opening my eyes while labeling me as a neo-Nazi for taking an active interest in my wife's culture while I was doing my best to learn how to speak Norwegian in my 60s. It was in Norway where I developed a strongly critical perspective of the current global, political, and social trends. In the decades since my return to Canada, I have seen my worst fears come to fruition under the Liberal Party of Canada, which has exceeded the socialist mind meld I had encountered while in Norway. Canada has become the very manifestation of a Star Trek episode where the Borg captured crew members to turn them into unthinking, collective machines, an extension of Borg Central, where they all share the same brain and the same zeitgeist. There is no alternative opinions among the left, just variations on the same narrative. The following criticisms touch on a complex set of interconnected political, economic, and social anxieties. So I will attempt to identify and summarize my concerns as they relate to political philosophy and current events. Next subtitle is Core Themes of Concern. The central thesis of my message revolves around my conviction that a powerful, authoritarian global agenda is being implemented, systematically dismantling the foundations of Western civilization. Next subtitle, Political and Economic Control. Critique of the post-World War II vision for the West. I reject the established post-World War II global order, viewing its foundations as inherently flawed and rooted in a combination of neo-Marxism conflated with a fascist economy. Centralized regulation. I am deeply concerned over the blending of state regulation and industry, where production is dictated by what the unelected global order deems to be viable and sustainable, pointing to the failures, of course, of the Green Agenda. Propaganda and media control. I see the media, the Fourth Estate, as compromised and acting as a propaganda tool for unelected globalist powers. Hybrid authoritarianism. I argue that the current system is an illegitimate bastard child that draws on elements of both Marxism and fascism to create a new form of totalitarianism. Kid-glove totalitarianism. Next subtitle, Social and Cultural Downfall. This involves an erosion of liberty, where individual liberty is being systematically eroded. Impact of immigration. Mass immigration is a policy with the primary purpose of causing cultural attrition to eliminate those who remember a freer society. Decline of Western values. I assert that the combination of these authoritarian ideas have suppressed the free market of ideas and the Christian morality, which I credit as being the primary foundation for Western liberty. The role of education. I blame the Western Academy for teaching our youth ideological poison that has led to our cultural decline. Next subtitle, Perceived Global Alliance. Authoritarian coalition. I am deeply concerned between a neoliberal alliance of the powerful global forces and radical political Islam, based on their shared foundation of being illiberal and authoritarian, while seeking to destroy Christianity and our Western identity. What I experienced in Norway was personally frustrating due to the false labels that were being applied to me. This experience served as a catalyst for solidifying my views about the post-war, postmodern cultural relativist agenda. Let me be clear. I feel a deep sense of betrayal, accompanied by a profound sense of worry about the future of freedom and Western identity. Moreover, these thoughts do not include what I witnessed the senior management of the Norwegian Defense Department and the Foreign Affairs Department do to my wife, which must remain a topic for a different blog. Suffice it to say, no good deed she did ever went unpunished, particularly if it brought to public attention the gross inefficiencies of the Norwegian bureaucracy to properly address the needs of the Norwegian taxpayer. My conclusions. After World War II, the West was foolish enough to attempt to wage a kinetic war against what it viewed as its ideological enemies when the real war was occurring on the intellectual front. Our leaders ought to have addressed the ideological capture of our schools, universities, and the institutions of governance. Soldiers are not trained to fight ideology. The fight against ideological possession ought to have been left to our system of governance and education, but instead these institutions have indoctrinated our kids into the very ideologies that we once fought with the physical weapons of war. Said weapons are useless in fighting toxic ideology. But nevertheless, the military-industrial complex, in league with the globalists, still demands its pound of human flesh. The flesh of our young, whom we have sent to die needlessly, when the real fight ought to have been waged here at home to reclaim our institutions as servants of the people, not serving some unelected globalist gang of plutocrats and kleptocrats. These are things to think and pray about on this afternoon of October the 20th. I honestly don't understand, for first of all, I am not particularly intelligent. Anyone can know these things. Anyone who is observant ought to know these things. And certainly, if you're a Christian and you're not talking about these things, I seriously wonder if you're in touch with the very purpose of the gospel, to transform humanity and to bring the kingdom of God on earth. This is the kingdom of Satan that we're looking at here. These things must be waged on a spiritual and an ideological front, intellectually and spiritually. God bless you all. Have a wonderful afternoon.